Can you beat Super Smash Bros. Melee's Adventure Mode with all 25 characters without jumping, up specials, or upwards air dodges? I would restart from the completion screen of Dongle Dungle, hyper-concentrated transient human growth factory, so I was certain I wouldn't have too many issues since, you know, being as good as I am, I'm virtually a human taskbot. I flew over the rest of the obstacles and claimed my What? No. You gotta be kidding me, you can't be serious. If Nana jumps, I don't get concrete shoes, which means I fail the run. What am I going to do about this uncontrollable child? You idiots, you really thought a child could pose a threat to me? A child? Please, I eat kids like them for breakfast. Getting Nana to stop jumping was simple. By using Squall Hammer, I could guarantee that Nana would be locked into that action with Popo, preventing her from jumping. It really was that easy. I know I made it seem like a big deal in part 1, and for a time it did strike fear into my heart, but of course the first thing I tried when I reset was a mid-air Squall Hammer. This isn't the ultimate technique though, no, not even close. That's a whole nother caliber of cheese, and we'll get to it eventually. Back to the Ice Climbers, since the stage began on a pipe, I was immediately able to perform a series of mid-air Squall Hammers that propelled me across the stage more easily than any character in the entire run. Unfortunately, this came at a price. With all the other characters, the rest of the stages were no problem, but with the Ice Climbers, I had to constantly keep Nana in check. If she got too far away from me, she would almost certainly jump, forcing me to reset. I was able to somewhat restrict her by staying in one area and using specific moves, but there was little I could do if she got blasted away. My hatred of Nana solidified in Underground Maze, where every time I got to this ledge, Nana just decided, "Fuck you, I'm jumping!" With a little extra effort, I was able to spin Nana into submission and complete the stage. I made a complete mockery of the F-Zero Grand Prix, as even though Nana is a little shit, when combined with Popo, they become an unstoppable helicopter. I apparently almost beat Icicle Mountain without losing a stock, but for some reason gave up right before the end and allowed myself to die. Still, I'd love to see which characters could beat this stage with my restrictions without losing a stock. By sheer accident, I unlocked the Giga Bowser fight for the first time in my life. Granted, I hadn't played Adventure Mode since I was like 7 years old, but still pretty neat. Anyway, the Ice Climbers were climbed and it was time to move on to the next character, Link. While Link's bombs appear to not be as powerful in terms of knockback as they were in Brawl, I was determined to not let such trivialities impede my righteous destiny. Yep, Ouija time. Obviously, Luigi's side special Green Missile was going to be immensely helpful during this run. Ironically though, Ouija's Cyclone was nearly useless. According to the Super Smash Bros. Wiki, the maximum launch height requires twice the mashing speed than what is required in Brawl, meaning that you would need to tap B 19 times per second to max out. My top speed nowadays is only 11 presses per second, so I could only get about half the maximum height, which was not much. Since Luigi's Cyclone seemed to be out of the question, Green Missile was going to be my best bet. Thankfully, I was able to misfire and barely clear the second obstacle. Another misfire got me over the next platform, as well as the next one, and by launching myself into the air using a Koopa shell, I gained enough height to once again misfire and clear the cliff. Realizing that I could probably do better and clear the pipe as well, I went back down and tried again. This time, I instead got launched to the right and accidentally death warped to the pipe. I mentioned in part 1 that I initially thought this was impossible, and while I was proven wrong, it was difficult to replicate, so I rarely tried it with other characters. I decided to roll with it and moved on. Due to Luigi's inability to significantly increase his altitude, I predicted that getting up the platforms of the Yoshi Plateau would be a fruitless effort. Instead, I tried navigating the preceding arrangement of platforms that was full of enemies to bounce off of. Using the Koopas and Green Missile, I was able to propel myself to the third platform, but I knew I could go even further. I bounced off a Koopa and got a misfire that sent me directly to the top of the plateau. The strats in this run are just so stupid, I love it. Anyway, I timed Green Missiles to soar over the rest of the level and claimed my victory as Luigi. Later in this run, I found that getting hit by a screw attack item was actually considered a jump, as the game didn't give me the cement shoes bonus after being hit with one. Of course, I just had to restart the level and try again. I cleared the rest of the stages with Weege and it was on to Bowser. I was a little nervous of his weight, but he had the same sort of down special as Yoshi, so I was able to butt slam past most of the obstacles. I pulled off this crazy maneuver with some Koopa shells and anime knockbacked myself to the first platform of the Yoshi Plateau. From there, I attempted to do my usual Koopa shell shenanigans, but I had no way to effectively bounce off the shell. While I was trying to explode myself to victory with a bomb, I miraculously launched myself into a super mushroom and down specialed all the way to the top. Past that, it was a simple down special and some enemy knockback to finish. Alright, let's take a break from Mushroom Kingdom and unlock some more characters. To reiterate, I adhered to the rules during all parts of the run, so things were a bit more difficult than usual. First, I unlocked Marth by setting up a bunch of quick versus matches. I then went through classic mode on baby difficulty with Mario and Marth to unlock Dr. Mario and Roy respectively. Next, I once again reduced the lifespan of my MacBook Pro by leaving it on for several hours in versus mode to unlock Mewtwo. The rest of the unlockable characters took a lot more work, as they required me to complete event matches, which are a set of fights that each have a unique quirk to deal with. I wasn't required to complete all the matches, so I had some freedom in what I could choose, and as an extra challenge, I didn't allow myself to use save states for any of the matches. Matches 1 through 10, 12, 14, 15, 17 through 20, 22 through 24, and 26 were no issue at all, just a bit trickier due to not being able to move around as freely. Let's go through the matches that did pose problems. Match 11 was similar to the Ice Climber stage in Adventure Mode, but this time, I only had one stock to work with. I was unable to beat it, but I think I attempted this before I knew the Squall Hammer strat, so it's probably possible. Match 13 had me protect a Yoshi egg on a stage in which the camera moves around. Fortunately, the stage required me to play as Yoshi, who was highly versatile and mobile. I was able to survive this shipwreck and just barely keep the egg alive despite it being off screen at the end. Match 16 is impossible to complete with my restrictions, as I learned in Adventure Mode that using a Warp Star cancels out the Cement Shoes bonus, meaning that it was considered a jump by the game. According to the Smash Wiki, no attacks affect the curbs in this event match except those from a Warp Star, so there's just not a solution here. Match 21 allowed me to enact my revenge upon Nana, as knocking out 2 of the buggers was required for the completion of this stage. Fittingly, the Nanas couldn't really do anything except jump, which was basically spitting in my face. I chose Yoshi so that I could get over the center of the stage, and I smashed those impudent children. Match 25 was tricky because I was stuck on this tiny tower and could easily be pushed off with no hope of recovery, but after a few attempts, Donkey Kong just let me win. I'll take it. Match 27 gave me a lot of problems, and it wasn't just because I sucked. As many of you know, this level twists and turns, and it was very difficult to stay alive without jumping, especially with these metallic assholes harassing me. Samus wasn't the worst character in terms of mobility, but she certainly wasn't the best. Sometimes there was just nothing I could do, and the stage rotated me off to my death. After many attempts, I was graced with a home run bat and just blasted them all off the stage. Match 28 gave me trouble from the raw difficulty alone, but I just had to return to Monkey and throw an endless temper tantrum to win. Match 30, the third All-Star battle, forced me to use Yoshi in order to traverse Icicle Mountain for the final battle, but otherwise it was simple. Beating these matches allowed me to unlock matches 29 and 37, the completion of which awarded me with Ganondorf and Pichu. I didn't attempt any more event matches past the ones discussed since I didn't need to unlock anything else, but if one of you wants to try and figure out how many can be completed with my restrictions, I wish you the best of luck. That's it for event matches, so let's get back into the run with a newly unlocked Ganondorf. He's a clone of Captain Falcon, so there's really no interesting differences between the two runs. In fact, it was so similar that I got my lowest states loaded count with him due to knowing all the strats beforehand. Since this was the 10th character I completed in Adventure Mode, I was able to unlock Young Link. Next is Jigglypuff. Unfortunately, the Puffball couldn't clear the first platform with Rollout, but thankfully, in Super Smash Bros. Melee, Jigglypuff is a flying type Pokemon rather than a normal/fairy type, so I was able to HM2 the fuck out of there. I tried a bunch of wacky techniques for the next platform and eventually was able to pinball my way over. At the brick formation, I found that I could roll out into a shell and bounce myself just a bit backwards, allowing me to clear the platform. I used the death warp I had discovered earlier to warp past the cliff to the pipe, though I probably could have pinballed this section if I had tried hard enough. Just look at that movement, damn it's so satisfying. Thanks to Jigglypuff weighing about as much as the guilt that hangs over me from the numerous atrocities I've committed in my runs, I was able to float my way across this area using Pound. From this brick platform, I timed an air dodge and bounced off a Koopa Paratroopa to the third platform of the Yoshi Plateau. Now, I'm totally stumped. Getting here was super easy, but I had no idea how to get to the top of the plateau. Even if I had a Koopa shell, I had no way to elevate myself to bounce off of it. Sure, I launched myself into the air using rollout on a Koopa shell earlier, but getting enough shells and enough space to perform that seemed infeasible and most likely would not even bounce me high enough anyway. I could enter orbit by using a shield pop, but that's just going to spawn me all the way back at the pipe. Unlike the previous characters, I couldn't boost one of my specials with a super mushroom because none of them actually got off the ground. I tried everything, but nothing seemed to work. I couldn't believe it was going to end here when I had gotten so far. If Jigglypuff couldn't make it, then there was no way in hell the other characters could when their specials were even less useful. It really seemed like this was the end. Hold on. Yes! Fuck you! Yes! There I am! There I am! Yes, my ultimate strat. That's right, motherfuckers, the new ultimate strat, the Super Mushroom Shield Pop Launch, otherwise known as the Smispla. It's quite simple to perform. First, get big. Second, time a shield pop right before the Super Mushroom wears off. The closer the pop is to the transformation, the higher the character will go. Normally, you would be in a helpless state due to shield popping, but the return to normal size also returns player control, which means that both horizontal and vertical movement are possible with this strat. And guess what? The Smispla works with every character. You might be saying, Andy, why the hell is your dumbass looking ass calling a shield jump a shield pop? Well, let me tell you something, boy. Jumping wasn't allowed in this run, and shield pops aren't jumps. Don't believe me? Then why don't you ask the fucking game that awards you a cement shoes bonus despite shield popping? Get wombo comboed, you fucking nerds! Smispla is the ultimate technique. Put me on the wiki, boys. Put me on the wiki. Anyways, the ultimate technique should, to my knowledge, be able to clear literally every obstacle in the Mushroom Kingdom. However, it wouldn't be that fun if I just used it constantly, so it became a last resort. Let's continue through the run. I rolled out all the way to the next platform and then used a Koopa shell to bounce me backwards over the small ledge. Absolutely incredible. With Jigglypuff cleared, I moved on to another Pokemon. But are you really not going to subscribe after seeing that shit? You're really gonna take that risk and possibly miss the future ultimate techniques I will undoubtedly uncover? Man, you must be a casual. Anyway, Pikachu's Skull Bash had a slight increase when used at full power, easily getting me over the first platform, but I still had to Death Warp over the second. I grabbed a shell for later and positioned another shell near the platform. After a ton of trial and error, I Skull Bashed into the Koopa shell, launched off of it, and chained another Skull Bash to press on forward. I repeated the strat for the next platform, and just kind of bullshitted my way over the cliff. The shell I had brought with me all this way was finally placed down in front of the pipe, and I was able to Skull Bash combo over it. Is what I would have said if that had actually worked. I instead managed to do a Smispla to get myself over. I then performed one of the most memorable strats in this entire run. Man, shit like this is what makes Jumpless runs a blast, and is why they are my favorite type of challenge. Unfortunately, I had to resort to using a Smispla to get on top of the Yoshi Plateau, which, as you may have guessed, became the most common strat here for the later characters. Wrapping this up, I just Skull Bashed and bounced my way to the finish. Dr. Mario is a clone of Mario, and I performed virtually the same strats, so there's nothing to talk about here. On to Peach.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
Turnips. Yeah, I don't want to do that again. Immediately, I found that Peach's side special wasn't going to be as useful as I had hoped because there was barely any height gain after the explosion. However, I was able to booty blast my way over the first platform. I Smispla'd over the wall and got over the next platform by bouncing on Goombas. The following portion was a little trickier. Though I could easily get over the cliff by knocking myself back with a shell, I still needed some way to get over the pipe. In the end, I used my explosively hot ass to blast off a shell onto the platform. I then threw a shell, grabbed the other, got launched by the shell I threw, bounced off that same shell, and side specialed over the cliff. Finally, I butt-bombed the pipe and double bounced off the shell I had brought. Hot damn, that was sexy. I got to the Yoshi Plateau with enemy knockback and used Koopa shells in combination with my ass blast to get to the third platform. I unfortunately relied on a Smithspla to reach the top, but with better planning I probably could have got there with a third shell. I used ass crashes for the last 2 obstacles and cleared the stage. Easy peasy. Let's move on to the habitual milk drinker, Young Link. Unlike his older, milkless self, Young Link's bombs didn't seem to launch him into the air as much, meaning that there were less options for movement. I honestly didn't try too hard since he was basically a clone with more problems, so I cleared most of the stage with Smithsplas and Death Warps. Due to my reliance on Smithspla, I didn't have much time left at the end of the stage, which was one of the downfalls of the technique. Nevertheless, I finished Young Link and he finished his milk. As you may have noticed, the runs are becoming increasingly reliant on Smithspla as the movement possibilities decrease. Thus, I'm going to pick up the pace a bit to highlight the more interesting parts of each run rather than go through every single obstacle. Fox only had one half-useful move, his side special, Fox Illusion. Although it allowed him to clear a considerable distance horizontally, it offered no vertical height gain on its own. After Smithsplaying and Death Warping all the way to the pipe, I was able to ascend these platforms by exploiting bounce momentum with Fox Illusion. From there, another well-timed Fox Illusion got me to the third platform of the Yoshi Plateau, and I Smithsplayed my way to the top and blasted myself across the finish line. Roy Boy was next. Using his side special in the air gave me the tiniest bit of height, but continuing the combo past the initial move didn't help and it wasn't enough to get me past the first platform despite my best efforts. Instead, I chained the first slash of the combo with an air dodge and barely made it over. I used Smithspla and enemy knockback to get me to the pipe, and from there I performed a series of side specials, air dodges, and enemy bounces to get all the way to the third platform of the Yoshi Plateau. Past here, I just used a Smithspla and a shell to clear the rest of the stage. Pichu's Skull Bash was, unsurprisingly, more shit than Pikachu's because there was barely any height gain. While it does go further when fully charged, that's hardly helpful in the beginning, so I just had to use a Death Warp. I was stuck at the third obstacle for a considerable amount of time, but then I discovered that Pichu could keep charging his Skull Bash while bouncing off Koopa shells. I positioned a shell, Skull Bashed onto it, then reversed directions mid-air and charged another Skull Bash. The additional bounce allowed me to charge just enough, and I launched over the platform using the extra height from the bounce. Unlike Pikachu, I was only able to get to the second platform of the Yoshi Plateau, which was a problem because I wouldn't be able to reach a Super Mushroom to perform a Smithspla. While I panicked for a couple minutes, I realized that Pichu was light enough to shield pop to the third platform, a feat that few other characters could accomplish. Once again, Smithspla and standard enemy exploitation was used for the rest of the stage. Let's take another break and go through the 100-man melee, which I had to complete to unlock Falco. The game mode is as it sounds. 100 fighting wireframes gradually spawn in and increase in difficulty as the end approaches. Normally, this mode isn't that hard, but because of my restrictions, I had to deal with 2 problems. The first was the fact that I couldn't use recoveries when I fell off, so I had to play it safe to avoid getting into high damage values. For this reason, I used heavy characters to offset the knockback. The second problem was that I couldn't safely launch myself to the upper platforms with most characters, which the enemies sometimes exploited by refusing to descend to my level. Due to this, I had to rebind my control stick so that I could do up tilt attacks and throw items upwards. In adventure mode, you saw me using up tilt throws all the time to toss Koopa shells, but what I didn't tell you was that I accidentally jumped a lot, forcing me to reload earlier saves. I didn't afford myself that luxury here, so I just had to deal with the extra stress. I made a couple of attempts using Ganondorf and spammed this breakdancing move left and right, but it wasn't enough. After losing my mind to several failed attempts, I realized that the answer had been at my side all along. Return to Monkey. Slapping the ground like a Gwyn slapping my ass, I was nearly unstoppable. The slam required little effort and would have allowed me to unlock Falco if I didn't lose the fucking fight! I did the whole thing over again and this time unlocked Falco, who had virtually no differences in his run compared to Fox, so we're not even going to talk about it. Likewise, Marth's playthrough didn't differ from Roy, so we're skipping that too. Speaking of 2, Mewtwo. His side special did allow me to get a tiny boost with some horizontal momentum, but it couldn't even get me to the next platform. To get over the first platform, I actually used a flipper to knock me back. Besides Smithsplas and Death Warps, the only cool thing I did here was using the side special to aid in bouncing off enemies. I completed Mewtwo and moved on to Ness, who couldn't even get past the very first platform without a bomb. The only neat thing I did in his run was a near-perfect Smithspla. Zelda's next, and just like in most games, she's a thought. Just like in most games, she's pretty useless without light arrows. The only helpful move in her and Sheik's combined moveset was her side special that could slightly maintain her momentum. I had trouble getting to the brick platform I used to begin paratroopa bounces, resulting in me performing one of the most precise strats in the entire playthrough. In order to reach it, I had to get a running start and tilt my controller down in a fashion that didn't make me fast fall, but did throw the Koopa shell down fast enough for me to bounce off of it. After achieving the bounce, I had to conserve my momentum with her side special to get knocked back by the unshelled Koopa to the third platform. Just so you know, this strat alone took me around 100 attempts. After that, I just did some hot girl shit to complete her run. For Donkey Kong, all I had to do was expand Dong. Mr. Game & Watch was the final character, and boy was he immobile. But, as we know, that doesn't matter, because the ultimate technique saves all. And that was how I beat Super Smash Bros. Melee's Adventure Mode with all 25 characters without jumping, without up specials, and without upward air dodges, no rule breaks. I enjoyed this run even more than my Brawl run because the strats were just so dumb stupid. After the challenge, I did some regular matches where I was allowed to jump and apparently was so affected by this run that I simply forgot recoveries were a thing. So I think I'm actually worse at Smash after completing this challenge. If you want to one-up me, try doing this without save states, without losing a stock, without using any air dodges, and or without using items. If you'd like to support me, there is a Streamlabs donation link for one-time donations and a subscribe star for subscription-based donations in the description. Also, remember that I stream these challenges, so if you want to watch them live, you can do that. I mean, like, why aren't you? Until next time, remember that every problem in your life can somehow be solved with a Koopa shell or a super mushroom. See ya.